Oleksandr Usyk won this fight, but Rico Verhoeven made boxing uncomfortable again. Round after round, Rico Verhoeven dragged Oleksandr Usyk into a fight that the pound-for-pound key could not fully control. Heading into the championship rounds, it felt like Rico Verhoeven was on the verge of one of the most unbelievable upsets boxing has ever seen. Then the 11th round turned the entire thing into controversy. Instead of the clean finish for Oleksandr Usyk or the one final round for Rico Verhoeven to go out there on his shield, the referee stepped in late and left the boxing world arguing all over again. Regardless of the ending, the world of combat sports has learned that the gap between elite striking disciplines is becoming a lot smaller than boxing wants to believe. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not in here saying, oh, Ilya Topuria from the UFC is going to go in there and knock out Shakur Stevenson. No, not at all. But after watching, if you go all the way back and watch the Conor McGregor-Floyd Mayweather fight, to the Francis Ngannou-Tyson Fury fight, now to Rico Verhoeven and Oleksandr Usyk, you can see the discipline narrowing here, and I don't think other sports are catching up. No, nobody will be able to top the sweet science. The best boxer in the world will have the sweetest hands in the entire world. But Rico Verhoeven's game planning and his grip, his determination, and let's be real, his hands did him very, very well in this fight. So again, there was a lot of controversy surrounding this fight, and I mean, rightly so. I get it. It seemed like Rico Verhoeven was winning this fight, much like the Tyson Fury Francis Ngannou fight. When Ngannou got the knockdown, it seemed like, oh, Francis is going to win this, and realistically, like, that's not, boxing isn't scored on the optics of a fight. Boxing isn't scored on the effectiveness of a boxer. And sure, Verhoeven was coming forward, he was throwing a lot of punches, but being the defensive genius that he is, Rico Verhoeven did not land anything of note on Tyson Fury. There were some big punches here and there were moments where Oleksandr Usyk had to pause and say, wait a minute, something's going on here and I need to back out. But there was never any moment where Verhoeven was like, hey, I've got him and I'm going to go out there and get him. No, Oleksandr Usyk was in complete control for the majority of the fight. Was he dealing with things badly? Yeah, sure. And the scorecards, that thought of, oh, Rico Verhoeven is really overperforming expectations, so he's winning this fight. That's not how it goes. No. Instead, what we got to see was Oleksandr Usyk staying calm under pressure and really executing. Now, the scorecards, if you watch the scorecards now, the fan scorecards were much wider, and I think that goes back to that whole, oh, Rico is doing much better than we thought he would this fight. But boxing scoring is based on punches landed. Usyk made Rico miss a lot. The high guard and everything. He made him miss a lot just by being out of the way. Even though Rico Verhoeven was more active, it was Oleksandr Usyk at the end of the day that was landing the more meaningful shots. Look at the post-fight pictures of their faces. Usyk has a couple lumps, he was in a fight, it looked like, whereas Rico Verhoeven was really busted up. And it wasn't like he wasn't busted up before the fight, or before the finish in the 11th round. The stoppage, of course, was lame. I mentioned at the top that, it would have been nice to see Usyk get a clean finish, which is what I think it was going to end up being. But also to give Rico Verhoeven one more round to go out on his shield. He said that in his post-fight, that he wanted to go out on his shield, and he probably deserved to. Let's be honest, he probably deserved to go out on his shield. But, man, the way that the ref was looking at this fight, he doesn't care about the bell on finishing sequences. You can't be saved by the bell, sure, but also the referee has supreme discretion. And when Usyk, which we're going to talk about the finish in a minute here, but when he landed that lead right uppercut, and then he's pouring it on right after, he punched back maybe once, if I recall correctly, in this fight. And that single punch back was really kind of why the ref was calling it off. Because you can't, like in MMA, like MMA fans, a lot of them watch this fight. And understandably so, it's a cool crossover event. But in boxing, you can't just sit there and cover up against the ropes. The ref is going to call that every single time. And I get it was after the bell, and that is probably not ideal. But Rico was still not fighting back. He was badly hurt. Again, I wish he went out on his shield. I wish he got put out clean. I wish he, had the opportunity to fight back, but he didn't. Now, Rico Verhoeven was incredibly effective in this fight. In terms of overperforming. Now, we just got done talking about why he wasn't effective and why Usyk was seen as the winner of a lot of rounds people had as swing rounds. As a matter of fact, like, most media members had this wrong. Shout out to Mike Heck. Mike Heck nailed this. He had it almost even going into the 11th round. But with the scorecards, they were tied, and Usyk was going to get a 10-8 in that round, which would have put him up 2 rounds against Rico. And at the very worst, Rico might have dropped Usyk and got him a 10-8, and it would have been a draw. It would not have been a victory for Rico Verhoeven based off of the scoring cards that we were presented after the fight. But his effectiveness, though, he showed his hands were great, and his high guard, with that Dutch kickboxing style, they really do keep a high guard all the time and have really good 1-2s, and they come over the top a lot. And it really worked, but what I think really did well for Rico Verhoeven was the fact that he did a lot of tape study. Now, if you go back and watch the Oleksandr Usyk versus Derek Chisora fight, it looked kind of similar to this, where Chisora is got his head down and he's coming over the top with big looping punches and barreling his head into the chest of Oleksandr Usyk. Now, that was a different Usyk, one that was much lighter coming up from cruiserweight. This Oleksandr Usyk is the heaviest he's ever been. But to see that game plan work, and then see it work again for Rico Verhoeven here, that's got to tell you something, that Usyk is not infallible like everybody thinks he is. He's not infallible. So, it was really just put his head in his chest, barrel forward, and unload on him. Another thing that Rico Verhoeven did, that I liked was, as Usyk is a southpaw fighter, Verhoeven came out as an orthodox fighter, but every now and then he would throw that long right hand, and he would step through on that right hand punch. So he's throwing the right, and he's stepping through into southpaw as he throws that right, and then he's coming behind it. And that first real big body shot, I think, was based off of that. Stepping through, if I recall correctly, maybe not. One thing I didn't like about his gameplay was there's nowhere near enough body work. That's why Ajit Kabayel's fight with Usyk is so intriguing. The whole Daniel Dubois fight, the Anthony Joshua fight, where Usyk was clearly hurt to the body. Rico Verhoeven needed a lot more body work, and while he's barreling forward with his head down, the body shots would have been a lot more. He set out to do that early and kind of abandoned it midway through. And, you got to keep it up with somebody like Oleksandr Usyk. Now, the finish, again, the finish was beautiful. I'd say the knockdown was beautiful. So, yeah, sure, Rico Verhoeven had a lot of success with that head down, barreling, coming over the top with punches, kind of like Derek Chisora, but it was also his undoing. Usyk was constantly, after round 8, looking for that rear left uppercut. And Verhoeven was kind of wise on it. He got nailed by a couple of them, but, being as tough as he is, he didn't go out. But as Usyk stepped back into that corner, he switched. He threw a couple rear left uppercuts, and then he switches it up, and he throws a lead right uppercut. And it's always the punch you don't see and that gets you. And Rico didn't see the lead uppercut coming, and that's what put him down. Now, very, very big veteran move by Rico Verhoeven to spit his mouthpiece out intentionally. I am fully believe that was an intentional thing that he did. Give him more time to recover. Usyk complaining about it, but like that is savvy. It's bending the rules a bit, and if you can't bend the rules, I mean, what fun are we having? So yeah, that off the back foot, round 11, and then Usyk just kind of swarmed on him. So for Rico Verhoeven, I don't want to see more boxing. So I'm collabing this with my MMA channel, so MMA guys will get this and they'll like it. But more kickboxing, I don't think is in the cards for him. I don't think he goes to like a one championship or anything like that, who is one of the bigger. I don't think he goes back to Glory. There's not much for him there. Maybe a overeem fight. I think the biggest fight is Francis Ngannou in Jake Paul's MVP promotions. We just saw Francis get a win in his last MMA fight. Book that as an MMA fight. Now, I don't want more boxing for Rico or Verhoeven. This is a legendary moment, and you just let that breathe. Think back to the Francis Ngannou fight where he had that legendary fight with Tyson Fury, but then he goes out there and fights Anthony Joshua and gets sparked in 2 rounds. I think this fight was a big case of Usyk not taking him seriously. He came in, he looked slower, he looked more plodding, he was heavier than he's ever been. I think that was really an explanation of what happened with Usyk. Then there's also obviously the Alex Pereira fight in the UFC. Should Alex Pereira beat Cyril Gane and Tom Aspinall for whatever reason? Now for Usyk, this is the boxing heads right here. Usyk, Ajit Caballo is the main one, and it's again that body shot question. How does he deal with a guy who religiously hits the body? Ajit Caballo religiously adheres to hitting the body the entire fight. He gets finishes to the body. That is the one, and he's going to have to tough Ajit Caballo out. If he's looking for a tune-up, which this was just a tune-up, so I think we should move on past the tune-ups, but there's always Deontay Wilder out there. He has the name value still. There's Moses Atuma, the young buck, if Usyk wants to get in there with that guy. And then obviously Frank Sanchez, who just obliterated Richard Torres Jr. on this very same card. The pyramids were cool, dude. I liked it, but I was really kind of bummed out that they did it on late at night in Egypt, where the pyramids kind of went away. And I know they illuminated, but it wasn't quite the same thing. I would have liked to see just Usyk and Rico fighting at the pyramids during the day. They should have booked this at 10 in the morning Egypt time or something like that. I don't care if I had to wake up at 2 to watch this. I would have done it anyways. So guys, again, thank you all for watching. This is a really fun fight. Not very meaningful for Usyk, very meaningful for Rico Verhoeven, and it's going to be interesting to see where Usyk goes from here. At 39, he's got not much left in the tank. Like, subscribe, and then this is our playlist where we do all of our boxing shows. We talk about it every week. The recaps, we do previews for the big fights, and next week we're talking Bivol. So you guys want to catch in on that one.